What's up everybody, welcome to the channel. Today we're working on red beans and rice. Very simple dish, super easy to do, and it's absolutely delicious. It's only a few ingredients, just takes a little time, a little patience, so let's get into it. Okay, so here's what we need for today's dish. We need 1 large yellow onion. I've got 4 garlic cloves here. These are decent size, but if your cloves are smaller, just, make it work. 2 ham hocks. We got Creole seasoning. Not Cajun seasoning. Creole is what you want. Got a pound of dry red beans. We've got a 1.5 cups of rice. And of course we're gonna need quite a bit of water, but just get that right out the tap. Let's go. All right, so we got our prep done. We're gonna start by heating up our pot. I got a heavy, this is a cast iron Dutch oven. It's enameled. I like it because it's heavy. Stuff doesn't stick very easily. Retains heat. And it's just real easy to cook in. So I got this warmed up. I'm gonna do a couple tablespoons of olive oil, just a couple turns. And to that I'm gonna add my onions. Just shove them all in there all at once. You wanna hear that little sizzle. Nothing crazy, not like you're frying chicken or anything. Just a nice sizzle. Not adding my garlic just yet, because I'm gonna sweat these onions down. If I add my garlic too soon, it might burn and get bitter, and we don't want that. I've just got this over medium heat. Add a touch of salt, just to bring the moisture out in the onion. All right. While those onions are getting soft, we're gonna score our ham hocks, and I'll show you how that's done. Okay, so we got one of our ham hocks here, so we're gonna score it. We're not gonna cut deep into it, just gonna kind of make little slits across the skin. What this is gonna do is allow this to break down a little faster. It's gonna release its flavor easier, and when this thing is cooked down and it's getting to the point where it's nice and soft and delicious, this will be a whole lot easier to get to that delicious ham that's inside of there. It just makes it easier on you. So again, nothing crazy, not digging into it, just a few little slits. All right, so my onions are almost all the way soft, so I'm gonna add my garlic now. Make sure you get it all. Don't wanna waste anything. And again, make sure you don't add this too early because it will kind of scorch on you. You don't wanna ruin your whole pot of beans. Be pretty nasty. I can already smell that garlic, so that's a good sign. Now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my hocks in now. I really want these to kind of saute up a little bit, heat up, because what we wanna do is we wanna build up as much flavor as we can. Now I'm gonna have these in there too long, just enough to kind of get them warm. Maybe 3 or 4 minutes. All right, so I let my ham hocks cook for about 3 minutes on the first side, and you can see they're already starting to split open where I scored them. That's what I want to see. So I turned them over, let them go for a few minutes. Now I'm gonna add my water. So, just straight in. All right, so that was 6 cups of water, and that's what I'm gonna start with. So what we wanna do now, we're gonna cook these hocks for about an hour. We're basically making a broth or a stock that we're gonna cook our beans in. So I'm gonna put this over on medium-high heat. When it comes to a boil, I'll lower it so it can simmer, and you'll just let them rock out for about an hour or so. You'll see those hocks start to open up even more. You'll see the color of your broth will change, and that's when you know you're getting onto it. So let's let this rock out, and while we're doing that, let's get our beans situated. Okay, so now we're gonna sort and clean our beans. Real simple thing here. I've got a colander. You can use any kind of colander, a large strainer that you have. And what I'm doing is I'm just really making sure there's no foreign objects, no rocks, sticks, any other junk that could possibly be in there. So what I do is I just pour in a few at a time. I don't see anything. Go on to a few more. And most of the time, you don't find anything. They do a really good job of keeping this stuff clean. But occasionally, you will find a rock or a twig or something like that. And trust me, when you're digging into a good pot of beans, that's the last thing you want to do is be crunching down a rock or a stick or something. So here I got a pretty gnarly looking bean, black and hollow on the inside. I don't want that. It might be just fine, but hey, losing one bean ain't gonna kill me. But overall, this is looking pretty good. And the reason I've got this colander is when I'm done sorting through these, I'm gonna give them a quick rinse. Because again, you don't know what kind of junk this stuff was sitting in. All right, so we'll give it a quick rinse at the stove, or not the stove. That wouldn't work well at all. Quick rinse in the sink. We'll let them drip dry, and by the time our stock is ready in about an hour, these will be ready to go. All right, so we're back. It's been a little over an hour. These ham hocks have been simmering, so let's take a look at what we got here. Oh yeah, that looks perfect. See, these hocks are split open nicely. They're getting soft. Not quite falling off the bone yet, but they are getting there. And that's exactly what we're looking for. So at this stage in the game, we gotta taste this broth. Because now is where we're gonna season this broth, and we're gonna add our beans. So let me caution you, you wanna season this lightly, because this is gonna cook down for a few more hours. And as this stock evaporates, the saltiness will intensify. So we're gonna use Creole seasoning. We had a little pinch of salt in there at the beginning with the onions. And you have to remember that that ham is pretty salty. And again, as this simmers down and cooks down, that salt is only gonna intensify. So you wanna start off sparingly. It's better to add it little by little, especially at the end, as opposed to having a big pot of salty beans. Nobody wants that. And once you do that, there's no fixing it. You can't go back. You can always add salt. You can never take it away. So let's give it a taste here. My trusty spoon. All right, definitely good ham flavor. Good flavor from the onions and the garlic. So we're gonna add a little Creole seasoning. Again, not a lot. That broth isn't super salty, but again, this is gonna cook down quite a bit. So we're gonna start off, this is probably gonna end up being maybe about a teaspoon of Creole seasoning. And again, I'll probably add more as the cooking goes on. But we want to start off easy. Again, we have a lot of salty components going on here between the Creole seasoning and the ham. And again, we did add salt at the very beginning. So at this point, let's get our beans in. These are the beans that we sorted and washed. They're just going straight in. We're meantime, get our heat up. I want to get this up to a boil again. And then once it comes to a full boil, we'll turn it down, let it simmer. This is going to simmer probably about 2 hours. I won't even check it for an hour. I'm going to put the lid on, let it simmer, let it do its thing. And I'm guessing about the 2 hour mark, those beans will be ready. But you know, sometimes it takes a little longer. So once we get this up to a boil, again, we'll turn it down to a simmer, put the lid on, and go find something to do for an hour. So we'll check back in an hour. All right, so it's been about an hour. We're gonna check these beans, see how they're looking. All right, this is looking good. You know, we got a pretty thick little gravy going on. That's just from the beans releasing their starch. They're not all the way cooked yet, but they are getting there. They're still pretty firm to the touch. We want them to be nice and butter soft, but you see this ham is coming apart really nicely. So at this point, I'm gonna give these a taste and see where we're at. So I'm gonna grab a fresh spoon here. Oh yeah, those are tasting like they should. So yeah, I'm not adding any more seasoning, any more salt or anything. I think by the time those are ready, they're gonna be perfect. Don't need anything at all. So at this point, I'm gonna check it again in 30 minutes. Gonna leave it on a simmer. And I think by the time we come back and check them again, it'll be time to make our rice. That way, when the rice is done, our beans will be done. So let's check back in 30. Okay, so it's been about a half an hour. I checked them. Probably about another 30 minutes to go on those beans. So now we're gonna start on the rice. So typically rice is really simple. It's 2 to 1 water to rice, a little bit of salt. That usually works out fine all the time. For me, that's still a little mushier than I like. So today I'm gonna show y'all the fingertip method. Something my mother showed me, and I've seen other mothers show their children, and it works really well for me. So basically what you're gonna do is I rinsed the rice. We had a 1.5 cups of rice that we started with. I rinsed that rice 4 times, just until the water was clear. And then I filled that up until the point where once I dipped my finger in there, when the tip of my finger touches the top of the rice and the water levels at that line on my knuckle, that's the perfect amount of water. I've been doing that for over 30 years. It's never failed me. You can use any pot, any amount of rice, as long as that pot is relatively straight, the sides are straight up and down, it won't fail you. So I'm gonna show you that real quick and then we'll get that rice going. Okay, so here's the fingertip method. Again, we rinsed that rice, kept it in the pot, filled the water up and adjusted it. So again, just use your finger right to that first line where your first knuckle is. So when my fingertip touches the top of the rice, it only gets wet until that line. You can't beat it, it works every time. So let's get this rice on the stove. All right, so we got our rice going. It's boiling now. At this point, I'm just gonna put a pinch of salt in there. I'm gonna put a top on it, but I'm gonna move this to a different burner. So I'm cooking on this glass top electric, and these eyes hold heat for a really long time. So I'm gonna turn the eye behind it to just above the lowest setting. And I'm gonna slide it over. That way it doesn't boil over on me. And at that point, all your heavy lifting is done. I'm gonna let that steam for about 20 minutes. Then I'll turn the heat off and let it rest for another 10. At that point, our rice will be ready. We'll be able to put this dish together. All right, y'all, so everything is done. My rice is perfect, my beans are perfect. Here's the final product. I plated it up fancy. You don't have to be this fancy. I just garnished it with a little scallions, green onions, whatever you got. A couple things to remember. You should allow yourself about 4 hours for this dish. Your pots and stove might be a little different than mine. You might boil a little harder or softer than I did. This isn't a quick thing. It requires a little patience, but the payoff is definitely there. So give this a try. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Good eating to all of y'all.